This is my new van. I just pulled it at a scrapyard, and this series is where I'm going to show you how I return this back to be a usable vehicle for a daily driver. Obviously, it didn't look like this when I pulled out the jaws of the crusher. It had a horrendous vinyl wrap on it, all the plastics were yellow, deteriorated, it had accident damage down the side of it. If you want to see how I fixed it, stick around, watch this series, and I'm going to show you every step. Back to some more familiar surroundings because we are now doing electrical work, which I am much more comfortable with. This is a very simple job, but I need to be on my bench because I need the soldering iron. This is the adapter which goes from the Ford radio plug to the standard ISO ones, which is what the aftermarket radio I have got takes. However, the aftermarket radio I have is a bit more advanced, well, a lot more advanced than the one that was originally fitted, so it uses a lot more connections than the Ford factory wiring supplies. So what I'm going to do is basically take this, cut this off, and attach on my new other plug, which is exactly the same plug, just with more wires on it. The red, black, yellow and orange are going to all go just to the same connections on here as they are now. That gives you your permanent 12 volts, ignition 12 volts, your ground and your illumination, which is for when the headlights are on, so the radio can do things. And then I'm going to attach that to these to give that, and then we have other things like reversing camera feed or reversing light feeds to trigger reversing cameras, that kind of thing. So yes, cut this off, solder this on, very simple job. So I've got that adapter I just modified in here. We've fixed the bodge of wires that was on the back. Somebody had clearly made a bit of a mess of trying to take a feed out of this to feed, I think, a car phone, but I'm not sure. So we fixed that, put this on, and now we're just going to attach a bezel here which will change this from the Ford proprietary size to a double-din slot, so the radio head can go at the top, and then I have a panel at the bottom where I can mount my switches for some other stuff. I figured we would have a little talk about reversing cameras, just wanting to go over a couple of things. So this is the back of the van, obviously. The number plate would go here, but I've taken that off for obvious reasons. We're also going to be putting the markings on the back of the van soon, which will be easier not having a number plate there. Anyway, there is this angled bit here where the number plate lights go, and I'm going to mount the camera there because I think it will give the best view backwards without requiring awkward mountings or things. The camera that the radio actually came with is this horrendous thing. I mean, I'm sure it will work. It does not look particularly waterproof to me, and it is absolutely enormous. So you can imagine having that mounted on the back of your van is going to look pretty horrendous. And also, this has a massive bullet here which has power supply stuff, I think, and big connectors on the end, so you would have to drill probably like a 10 mil hole in the panel to get this through, or in reality you'd need to cut this and then solder it back again. So instead of that, I have this, which is another type of camera I got. I don't know where this came from actually, I think it was eBay, but we had these lying around. This is a panel mount one, so this little bezel bit screws off the front, and then you can put the camera through the hole in the panel and screw the front bit back on, so you'll just have that bit forward of where my finger is poking through the panel, which means that all of the wiring and stuff doesn't have to go through the hole because you've got the camera filling it. the camera will look fairly small and unobtrusive, just a little black dot. And also, it's a much neater solution from a point of view of only having one hole rather than a hole for the cabling and then holes for bolts and screws and mounting brackets and stuff. This camera, again, I don't know about other models, this one specifically, has 2 loops of wire here. These are for basically options. One of them mirrors it and one of them puts green, like reversing bars superimposed over the image. Personally, I think those are a bit stupid. So we're going to disable those. Oops, I'm going out of frame. I think that has to be the green wire we have to cut, but I'm not sure, I'll check later. Yeah, I just wanted to show though the reason we're going with this and not the one it's come with. You can get these on eBay, I don't know what you'd search for. Bullet camera, panel mount, reversing camera, something like that. This might be a tad hard to film when I'm doing it, so I thought I would explain it first, and then if I can film it adequately you won't see this. But we have got the wiring loom here. This is a flexible conduit, or a copex as we call it, which is running from the front of the van back to the tail light assembly and the door here. So we've cut this open and got the wires out from inside it. We need this one here, which is the green wire with a black trace on it. You should check for your own vehicle which one it is though, because it will be different. We have the wiring diagrams fortunately, otherwise this would be a complete pain in the ass. But the green wire with the black trace in this vehicle is the signal for the reversing light in the light cluster, which is through there, if you can see it. What we're going to do is we're going to cut that here. Oops, sorry. We're going to cut that here. I will then splice in this, which is a inline fuse holder. So that will fuse it down from the, I think, 15 amp fuse, which is on the light, to a 1 or 2 amp fuse. I will then take a feed from here. We'll run that in behind the tail light there. We'll take a 0 volt, probably from in behind the tail light, and we will then take that in through this flexible rubber pipe here into the inside of the door, and then that can feed the camera. I have not quite decided yet exactly how I'm going to do the wiring for this. I'll show you after it's finished, but yeah, that's approximately what we're going to be doing. So now in the back of the van, we'd come out from behind the headlining here into this box section. We'll run along. The signal for the beacon, or the cable for the beacon, will then come across this crossbar here. The beacon will be mounted somewhere around here on the roof, so that will come out of one of these holes, which you probably can't see very well, into that. The cable for the signal for the camera will continue, oops, along there, and then it will drop down and it will go into here. We've already exposed the wiring loom here, and fortunately we have wiring diagrams which make this so much easier. But we need the green wire with the black trace on it, which is this one. We will splice that, put a fuse holder like this in line with that to fuse it from 15 amps down to 2. We will then take the signal from here through, along with the data cable, back to the head unit into, I'll show you in a second, through into here, which is the space behind the light cluster. We'll pick our 0 volt up probably from here, and then that will be the reversing light feed from in there, the data cable back to the radio unit, and the ground from here through this, through the rubber tube into the door to the camera, which is going to be here. So here is the completed wiring in the rear for the camera. The camera is tucked up in there, but you can probably see that. We have coming out of the camera here the sort of cable which go to the box. We've cut the green loop here to get rid of the bars. Hopefully that's the right one. We have incoming supply over here, positive and negative. The cable goes out for the video signal, and the signal wire in that cable is, you can't see in this mess up here, but it's connected to the positive as well as to feed the camera. So that means that when we turn the reversing lights on, the feed will come in through these cables from the fuse holder, which is, if I turn this round, there we go. The fuse holder, which is that thing hanging out there, feed comes from there through in behind the reversing light over here, through the gator into the door, comes into here, powers the camera, and goes back through this line, back all the way to the front to the radio. So a quick test of the reversing camera. I've now got it fitted. The van ignition is on, which is important because I need the lights for the reversing to come on. If I then shift the van into reverse, there we go, you'll hear the reversing sensors going off because I'm close to the door. But the camera is working. It's slightly off straight, so I need to go fix that, but other than that, all seems to be well. And then shift back into neutral, and we are back to main menu. That's good, everything seems to be working. So in terms of microphone for the hands-free calling on the radio, the one it's come with is this, which is a lapel mic with a clip, which would have been a complete pain to actually fit. You'd have had to have cut it off and stuff. So we've just reused the one that was in the van. We've just moved it from up there on the lining to here. We've got the cable from that coming out the back through a small thing that we filed in the edge there, running down the A-pillar, in behind the dash, over under the bottom of here, which you probably can't see, we'll see, yeah, running over the back of that, and then in through into the cavity behind the radio here. So we're just putting a hole in the roof for the light bar to mount on top, and I just figured I would explain quickly the purpose of the spacer. So Ford have put these strengthening ridges in the roof in order to basically make it less easy to bend, but one of these is running right down the middle of the roof, which is where the light bar has to go, which mounts with a single bolt in the middle of the light bar. So that's going to be right in the middle here, and then means if you have your light bar on top like that with a bolt through the middle, when you do it up, you're not going to be able to do it very tightly because you're basically just pressing in the middle of this ridge and you have nothing to push against. So I've 3D printed this. It's almost solid block of plastic, which is the same height as this dip is deep, with some slight gaps at the side so the water can still run down, because the roof slopes back like this to drain water off it, so it lets the water drain. But that means when I put the light bar on, the light bar has something to clamp down against. It can clamp against the wide flat part of the roof and transfer the force down through this block. This is something I just feel I should mention so nobody gets caught out by it. If you're fitting an aftermarket light like this one, it's very important. It has the E in a circle with a number next to it on it. That is basically the European type approval that makes this legal to use on a public road. If it doesn't have that, you could get yourself in problems. So make sure you buy one with one of these. You'll see this on basically anything that is attached to a vehicle. Most parts will have one. I can show you a few. Like here's one on the tyre, for example. There's another one on the windscreen. This one might be quite hard to make out, but there's a tiny one there on the brake light at the back. I am just going to quickly drop a note in here from editing me because I think I forgot to mention this anywhere else. But if you are going to fit a light bar like this, where you have drilled a hole, you've physically attached it to the vehicle permanently, and it is permanently wired into the electrical system of the vehicle, that is an insurance modification, and you must declare that. If you don't declare that, your insurance may potentially be invalidated, and you don't want that kind of thing. So either if you do it, or ideally before you do it, phone your insurance company up and check with them how much it will affect your premium, if at all, whether you have to declare it, and what their specific policy is about it. But I should have mentioned this probably when I was talking about that e-marking thing. So I have to admit I'm quite impressed with this little module here actually. It is from AliExpress. I got it in one of those bundle deals with a whole pile of other stuff for like £1.80. I think this cost £2, somewhere around there. I don't know how much it would cost if you bought it not in a bundle deal. But it is actually power delivery, and I think it is actually quick charge as well. Both do seem to work. Has a power button on the front, and on the back 2 spade connectors. It does actually come with, if I grab them there, a couple of little crimp-on spade terminals too. You can buy these easily though if it doesn't. I'm going to wire this in 1.5mm squared. I'm not sure how much power this thing is actually able to pump out, but I'm going to put it on a 10 amp fuse, so 1.5mm cable on a 10 amp fuse should be fine. Something smaller than this, like 2402, would be cutting it a little bit fine current rating wise, so I'm going for the next size up because I've got it. So on today's episode of jobs I thought would be easy but have turned out to be a complete pain in the backside is fitting USB ports in the cabin, because this car does not have one. It has a cigarette lighter port which you could plug a USB adapter thing into, but I wanted to put a permanent one in. So I figured I'd just pop this out and shove one of these things in, which has USB-C power delivery and quick charge 3, and I've checked it is actually real as well, quite like this. It fits in this hole perfectly, all that, everything will be amazing. Getting this plug out has been an enormous pain in the ass, because they are very firmly clipped in. In order to get it out, what we've had to do is remove the storage bucket from down here. There are 2 screws in the back of this. Take the radio out. There are 3 screws in the back of here. And then the Dick engineers who have designed this have put 2 screws from the back here and here, which are damn near impossible to get out. That took ages. And then there's a whole load of very fragile, snappy plastic clips that go around here, which we've had to prise out. We've eventually managed to get just enough of a gap here that we could get a screwdriver in and break the clips off the back of the blank plate in order to get it out. So these have now, well, that one snapped off, this one's just bent. If I ever want to put this back in, I'd have to glue it, but I'm probably not going to. Anyway, now I'm going to have to try and get cabling into here, which again is going to be a problem, but my camera battery's going flat, so 1 second I change that. So the cable routing is not going to be as bad as I thought it was. On first inspection it looked like this might be solid, going all the way back, and thus making getting a cable from in here to here a complete pain in the ass. But actually, if I get the camera in the side here, and if I poke a light in through that hole, hopefully you can see, I don't know if I can angle it properly, but there is a very small gap where that light is coming through. If I wiggle it you can see. So hopefully I'll be able to get a cable rod through there and to get the cabling into the sort of behind the glove box, and I'll take power off this fuse box here. So again, I think this is going to be a little bit difficult to film me doing, but I have the module there plugged onto the wires. The lock ring is on the other side of this, hooked over the wires with this to stop it falling down the wires. I've just got them dangling at the bottom here. I'll route them round more thoroughly later, but I'm going to basically push this module in with a set of pliers in the side to hold the lock ring and try and get it on the end and start screwing it in place. But as I say, I think filming that will be quite difficult, so I'll get back to you once I've actually got all this together. So that's it in there. To be honest, I think it actually looks really good. Almost factory. You can't tell that's been added other than the fact the vehicle's too old for it to have been there originally. So I'm very happy with that. In terms of wiring, I've fished the wires out so they're coming out through the glove box here. I have taken the cover for the airbag off to allow access in here for my dash cam hard wiring kit, which I've got there. But I have put a crimp ring with the earth for that on here, just bolted onto the metal. I have a tail coming off that which I'm going to use for the earth on this and some other potential things down the line. For power, I'm going to use these, which are basically their fuse taps is the search term for them. They plug into the fuse box in place of a standard automotive blade fuse, with one on the side which goes to feed this cable coming off, and then there is another space you could put another fuse which will replace the one you've plugged in if you're having to remove one to make space for it. Quite useful things actually, I like these. I got a pack of 5 of them off AliExpress, again bundle deal for like £2 something, so worth getting a few of them. So I'm going to get on with this wiring here. You will have to forgive the lighting being a tad suboptimal, but I want to show you the wiring I've done before I put everything back together. So this, oops, my hand is casting a shadow. This here is a fuse box behind the glove box in the passenger cabin. I have 2 fuse taps. One of them is an ignition feed and one of them is permanent power. Both of those are going off into this wiring here. We have a feed from the ignition. It comes off here, goes into a fuse holder there, which takes that off up and into here into the basically the power supply for my dash cam. That is getting its earth from there, and we take an earth from there as well into here, into where the radio is for the beacon. We take, talking of the beacon, a permanent power feed from there through down along here again into this here. So I have my twisted pair, I twisted them together for going up to the beacon with the power on the white and signal on the green, and then I have a permanent power feed on the white and a earth on the green, coming again into this bit above the stereo where the buttons will go when they arrive. They haven't come yet. But I wanted to show you this before I put all these trim pieces back in. In terms of switching for the beacon, I have purchased these, which are basically the standard aluminium IP68, 66 I think, something about that, push button switches. I have got 2. One of them has a power logo on the front, I don't know if you can see, and the other one is just plain. The plain one is a momentary and the power button one is latching. Again, I don't know if you can see the difference, but it latches, whereas this one does not. Anyway, this one is going to be for power and this one is going to be for the mode change. This one is going to be pulling the signal wire down to ground, and this one is going to be switching the positive feed to the beacon. I have made up this, which is a little sort of panel thing. It's made of just hardboard, scrap hardboard, which will fit above the radio in the second DIN slot. You can get official like plastic DIN blank plugs, but they are shockingly expensive. They're like £10–15 for what is effectively a bit of plastic, so I made one because I'm not paying that much. I'm going to drill a couple holes in that, mount these in this. I'm thinking probably putting them 2 here, because I have other things which will go here in due course. I haven't fitted that stuff yet though. These buttons as well have come with plug-on sort of housings as well, or harnesses, which is good because it will make my job much easier. I can solder this inside the van and then just plug the battery, or not the battery, sorry, plug the button onto it once I have got everything in place. So I'm going to get on and do this. I'm just going to quickly go over the wiring for this. So I have the power button, which is a latching push button. The illumination on that is being fed from this, which is coming off of the dashboard lighting feed to the back of the radio, which is used to like change it from day to night mode and dim the screen. So the feed from that goes into here. The earth from that, or the ground from that light, goes to the ground. The the positive power from the vehicle goes into the common of this switch as well, and then on the output of that links into... Is this the correct switch? Yes, it is. The output of that links into both the feedback to the beacon here and into the illumination for this other push button, because this push button will have to come on when the beacon's on. That's extremely important. You need some sort of visual indicator that your external warning light is on inside the cabin. That's a legal requirement. You can get into trouble if you don't have that. And then this push button, the mod change one, which is also serving as the indicator, that has its common connected to the chassis ground, and then the signal... I'm probably bashing the camera, it's making horrible noises. But the signal then from that is going back into the cable up to the beacon. I'm going to put all this back in now because it's a mess. And this here is going to be probably the last episode in this series, at least for a while, because I have done basically everything I want to with this. I've done a couple of mechanical jobs on the engine, which I didn't film because access was terrible. And it just would not have been entertaining to watch. Basically the back of my head for hours and hours and hours as I try to undo bolts and such like. So yeah, this is going to be the end of that series, at least for now. I do have a few more things planned in the future to do with auxiliary batteries and stuff, but I haven't actually got any of the parts to do that yet. And I do have a bit of a backlog of other non-van related content which I would like to make over the next wee while. So I'm going to take a break from the van, and we'll go back to that. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, any comment, questions, suggestions, whatever, drop them down below because I do read them all. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.